Mike Dibben, a 2011 inductee into the CARB Hall of Fame, and I've got the pleasure to be sitting right here with Mr. Dibben. Mike, I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be able to come into your home here and sit down and talk a little bit about your racing career. I know, man, you accomplished quite a bit, a lot of trophies, as we can see behind us. People in racing, respect from them, but what I understand, this all started for you, this interest of racing all started when you were about 14 years old, and it was your uncle Jim Papps, who was a flagman in the Kansas City area.
Sure was.
And man, you had the golden opportunity to go around with that guy to the different racetracks at 14. That had to have been a thrill.
It was a thrill, and I liked racing. I mean, I've always been a hot rod at heart, you might say.
Yeah.
And the sound, you know, people like to listen to birds and different things. Well, I do too early of a morning, but that just makes goosebumps. Just thinking about it makes goosebumps come over me, the sound of the automobile.
We're in the same boat. I tell you what, when a small block Chevy starts winding up, there ain't nothing like that.
No, there's not. And unless you've been there, which a lot of people need to do more, is it kind of gets in your blood. Mm. You start going out there. I've got a lot of people that used to follow me that are still going. And I've got a lot of people that's in the pits and racing today that were children when I raced. Yeah. And they remembered me, which makes me feel wonderful. Yeah. And the people will run into my son Stephen and say, "Is Michael Dibben your dad?" I used to watch him when I wasn't no bigger than this.
Like you say, that's got to make you feel great. But with the prodding of a good friend of yours, Eddie Atkins, you more or less decide that, well, not more or less, you decide you're going to get into racing, and I believe it's 1969.
That's where I got my number.
You buy a car, and of course you got some terrific advice from your Uncle Jim, who told you you ain't got a chance in hell to run with those guys.
You shouldn't have never told me that, because that's probably what motivated me. I was going to prove that man wrong.
No matter what.
Yes.
And of course you were running against the likes of John Oswald, Gene Chapman, Johnny Smith, and man, you jump in there with both feet.
I did. And I did the best I possibly could with what I had.
And if I remember right, I hate to interrupt you, but a 57 Chevy.
Yes. With
now,
a 3/4 ton truck rear end.
Yeah.
Leaf springs on the rear.
Yeah.
Coils on the front without a shock on it.
A race car with no shocks.
Well, that tells you my knowledge of racing
at the time.
69 and 70. Well, I got better in 70, but 69 I was running I just went down there kind of to have fun. That's what racing's all about, is having fun.
All right.
If you're going for the money, you're wasting your time. I didn't ever race for the money. I raced for the fun and the enjoyment and the looks on people's face and the looks on my parents' face. And my kid Stephen pitted for me when he was 15. If I'd win, boy, he just, you know, I'm trying to explain how it made me feel because of the joy and the look on everybody
else's face.
They always used to come down in the pits like they do today and meet different drivers. And I had a lot of children that liked to watch me race, and they'd come down, and I got to tell you the truth, I got to winning so damn much I was giving them my trophies. But you know, that was their parents would come down and after that, weeks after, and tell me how much their kids
enjoyed
they
that.
Wouldn't let nobody touch them trophies.
Oh.
That was a Mike Dibben trophy. And he gave it to me because I'm one of his biggest fans.
Well, like you say, with the support of your mom and dad, Voris, and her nickname was Chuck Dibben, why you proceeded on, and then 70 through 71, why you're still in that area where you're a new driver, and boy, you're trying to figure things out and get into that area where you're not running in the mid pack or the back, but you're wanting to get up toward the front and just trying to really figure out what it takes to win. But like you say, 70, 71, still ain't quite got it figured out.
No. It takes a while to learn how to drive a race car. I mean, you can't, everybody in the stands will tell you, man, if I was out there, I'd do this, I'd do that. Well, it's not that.
It's not that way.
No. You got to, you know what I done? I drove with my ass more than I did my arms. If I had the right feel of that car, then I knew it was right. I knew I was going to front. If it didn't feel right to me for some odd reason or other, wrong air pressure, wrong tire, wrong this, wrong that. Well, it's And I tell you, there's a lot of the guys that run modifieds will tell you that you drive a lot with your ass.
Yeah, it's more the way the car feels, just underneath it,
feeling you.
Yeah,
just like any athlete. And they asked me if I was. Kansas City Star interviewed me one time. Said, "Do you consider yourself an athlete driving a race car like big?" I said, "Have you ever wrestled 3,000 pounds for an hour?" And I'm telling you, that's what I'd be ripping wet. And that's what you do. I mean, it wasn't that my car didn't handle. It's hot. You get inside them cars with that exhaust running out right underneath your feet. It gets hot.
And no power steering.
Oh, no, I never run. We didn't run power steering. My Uncle Bud tried power steering once, and it
didn't like it.
Didn't like it. And I had some guys tell me at Lakeside here a while back, well, I lost my power steering. Big deal.
Who cares? And just drive the car. Oh, okay. In 72, though, boy, I mean, you really kind of start figuring it out. And old Mr. Nemesis John Oswald for you. He does beat you, but boy, he only beat you by 1 point in 72 for the points championship at Riverside.
That's correct.
But you still had to have a good feeling about knowing you got that close.
Well, I got to number 2. That's nothing to sneeze at. And Uncle Jim used to tease me. How'd you manage that? I said, you just watch me, old man.
Well, in 73, you do come back.
And I've got pictures all over the wall back here of Uncle Jim as the flagman.
Yeah.
Holding that flag up behind my head.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you another story. One time I won a race at Riverside, and you know who the trophy girl was? Mrs. Carrick.
Oh, really?
Well, he's another one at Riverside. Tom Carrick was very, very good at Lakeside, and his wife was the trophy girl.
Yeah.
And after they presented me the trophy, I picked her up, took off running. Said, I'm going to steal you, man. Oh, Tom got a big kick.
But like I say, though, in 73, though, you do get Oswald. You win the points championship in 73.
Yeah.
And more or less, that's kind of the time where Mike Dibben's starting to get it together pretty darn good, because in 74, 75, 76, you're racing at Lakeside, but you're the points champion at Lakeside for those 3 consecutive years, plus 74, 75, you're the points champion at Topeka also. So, man, I mean, those years are putting Mike Dibben on the map as far as being the guy to beat.
Yes, it was. He got my name out there, and I'll tell you another thing. I hold that record. There's nobody ever won 3 championships in a row at Lakeside Speedway, and it'll always be a record because it's gone.
Right.
The old Lakeside Speedway is no more.
Yeah.
So there's nobody going to beat me.
Right. And I think something else we should touch on while we're talking about these 3 years of championships was you had went to Iowa and got a car from Ed
Sanger.
Yes. And let me ask you this, Mike. Do you think that the technology of that car had a lot to do with those 3 years of points championships? Because I believe you mentioned sometime earlier to me that the racers in Iowa were a couple of years ahead of the Kansas City folks.
Definitely were. I'll tell you, somebody you can ask if you don't believe me, and that's Bob Kosiski. He ran a car just like mine.
Did he?
So Joe.
Yeah.
Run Sanger cars just like mine.
Yeah.
And they were fast.
And something else, big blocks. I think you were telling me you guys were running big blocks.
Yes, I started out with a 9/16 stroker, small block. And then I went to aluminum head, 454, 850 horsepower motor.
Gosh, 850 horsepower. That's comparable with some of the stuff they're running today in 400s.
Oh, yeah.
And sprints and stuff like that. Wow, that's a lot of horsepower.
Yes, it is. But you learn how to drive that horsepower.
Yeah.
If you learn how to drive that much horsepower and get a decent car, you're going for it.
Yeah. And just to give everybody an idea of how dominant this guy was, at Lakeside in 75, I think it was, put $1,000, can't think of the word now. Bounty.
I didn't put it.
No, that's what I say. Lakeside put $1,000 bounty on Mike.
Anybody beat me.
For anybody that could beat him. And, of course, old Larry Phillips comes up here from Springfield, and Kosiski comes down from Omaha, but neither one of them put it on you.
Nope. Never collected that bounty, which I'm proud to say.
Yeah.
I mean, $1,000 to a fellow racer, I'd almost let him beat. Because $1,000 back then was a ton of money.
Yeah. Also, one other thing we might throw in on that at that time frame was you had the nickname the Intimidator, and like you say, that was pretty well before your friend who did that in NASCAR.
And that's Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Dale Earnhardt Sr. And I think you were telling me also on the phone that you wanted to let everybody know you were there. In other words, if you were in second or third or whatever, you kind of come up and bump a guy a little bit and say, "Hey, guess who's here?"
But that would, most guys they'd make a mistake. That's what I wanted them to do. Make a mistake, go in too hard.
Yeah.
I bumped down straight away, and they'd go in the turner too hard, and there I'd see. Catch you later.
It must have been fun, Mike. I mean, everybody loves winning, and to be what it sounds like then, I don't know how many features you won during that time, but it sounds like you were pretty dominant during those 3 years.
I won a plenty. But being a champion like that is great, and I've done it 3 years in a row, but people learn to hate a winner.
Oh, yeah.
I got booed.
Oh, yeah.
I got people coming down in the pits giving me trouble about I cheated. And I've never, Mike, I'll tell you, I've never cheated in my life on a race car, boat, or whatever. If I can't win legally, I won't even go. And that's the same way my son's car is. Anybody watches Car 69 at Lakeside Speedway, that car is legal from one end to the other, and it always has been. We had some guys come up there at Yancey's one night, or some guy come in there crying, John O'Neill, which is a good race car driver. He told Yancey, he says, Dibben's cheating. He's got to be doing something. Yancey said, no, he ain't cheating. He's just out driving your ass.
Yeah. Okay, 77, 78, 79. Now, things kind of start on the downhill slide a little bit, and some of it might be, well, you had a change of equipment for one thing. You had some health issues that were involved in that, but things kind of start slowing down, and Mike decides maybe it's time to hang it up.
Let somebody else win. I mean, 76, 7, and 8 or whatever, I didn't race as hard as I could have raced because I got tired of being called a cheater and no good for winning. So I thought maybe, I'll run second, third. People are going to be that way. And I bought a brand new car, and I should have waited another year to buy it because it wasn't perfected yet.
Yeah.
I should have let Singer perfect it before I bought one.
Yeah.
I bought one of the first cars he ever built, and I kept Old Faithful in the garage there
for a year.
I never did race it, but I sold it, and that guy started winning.
Yeah, went right out on the track with it and started putting down some numbers.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, Mike, all I can say is it's been a real pleasure to get to come up and talk to you.
I'm glad you did. It's made me feel good. And
appreciate you sitting down with us, and I know it's got to be quite an honor to be going into the CARB Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it is an honor. Just like it was an honor when they invited me to Tri-City, Illinois to race that race with. You had to be a track champion somewhere, and even to be invited.
All right.
And I did get invited, and I raced with Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, Kenny Schrader.
Wow. Some
of the big boys that, if things would have been different, I might have been able to be up there with them boys today.
Right. Okay. Well, once again, I want to say thanks to Mike Dibben for sitting down and talking to us. And once again, Mike Dibben, 2011 CARB Hall of Fame inductee. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.